What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbein today, joined once again by my main man, Jacob Punturi, wearing a My Girly shirt. Is that from My?
It's probably a little tough. Yeah, it is an ode to my dogs, which you probably can't see from where my camera is cutting things off.
But, which is only a disappointment because I wish we could. But we are joined once again. Find us at youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your audio podcasts. And as always, you can find both of our written work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Jake, I'll start with this one. First, how you feel, my friend? Second, what was more exciting, and was it possible to have a more exciting pick than NFL draft where Shedeur Sanders fell down the board and NHL playoffs where chaos seemed to turn into crazier chaos with every single game? Was there a better weekend for you? Has there ever been a better weekend for you, my friend?
I think you put it perfectly, Noah. It was excellent between watching the Steelers have their way at the draft, NHL playoffs. I mean, no Penguins, but it is exciting hockey. The Tampa, Florida stuff is just pure chaos. So yeah, I'm loving it. Things are good over here. Happy to be chatting with you again, my friend.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you on here. As always, we're talking some Pittsburgh Steelers football. We're diving into trade rumors with the Dallas Cowboys and where they went and what they mean for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Will Howard, everybody's got questions about the entire draft, none more than they do about the quarterback and where the Pittsburgh Steelers are headed at that position. And then it's Tuesday, and it's the best day of the week. We're playing Overreaction Tuesday before we head out of here. Let's start with George Pickens and the potential trade that was during the 2025 NFL draft. According to The Athletic's Diana Rossini, quote, George Pickens' name was tossed around the league with trade discussions this past week. The Cowboys were one of the teams that discussed bringing in the Steelers wideout, sources tell me, but with the draft in the rear view, expect that trade buzz to be cooling surrounding Pickens. I think this comes with a number of questions. Obviously, the Pittsburgh Steelers' interest in trading George Pickens, how real is it? And if it's real now, is it going to continue? And if it's going to continue, the trade in an NFL draft or during the NFL draft meant there was a replacement option. I don't know if that replacement option carries after the draft, so maybe you can no longer think trade because you can no longer think replacement. We'll start there. I mean, you look at this, you hear that the Steelers were calling, whether or not it was the Dallas Cowboys or not, I don't care who it was. The Steelers were having engaged conversations about trading George Pickens. If that's the case, is that door still open, or was it only open during the draft to say, well, we could trade him and replace him, which works out long-term instead of right now? Does that ship sail if there is no replacement option?
It's an excellent point. I really don't think it does. And the only reason is because it seems like for the past, since the end of this past season, moving into the off season, the Steelers have been wishy-washy at best on what they want to do with George Pickens in the future. The Metcalf trade only sort of muddied the waters, so to speak, on that situation. But I think they don't really know. So I don't feel if I was Omar Khan and I'm fielding trade offers or maybe just testing the market for Pickens around the draft, if I'm still not sure about committing to him long-term, which it seems more and more likely they will not in the future, why not just keep having those discussions and keeping that line of conversation open with other teams? Maybe a replacement isn't there right now, like they maybe valued one at the draft, like you bring up, but maybe one falls to them around training camp. Maybe they really like, I remember when I was on here a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Calvin Austin, and maybe they see some sort of elevated role for someone in-house. But no, I don't think this really shuts down the George Pickens trade rumors. Not until really the season starts will I believe that he isn't on the trade block.
I agree. I got to look at it right now and say the Pittsburgh Steelers essentially confirmed what we've all been thinking. And that is that we haven't been talking the Steelers are just going to trade George Pickens because they want to get rid of the guy. They're talking, and we're talking George Pickens trade because it's a real possibility that is the best outcome for the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. If they can't get a deal done, if they're not looking to get a deal done, then chances are you have to move him. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a Brandon Ayuk situation where George doesn't want to be here, and he's saying, I'm not showing up. You either get rid of me or you pay me. And the Steelers looked at it and said the NFL draft is the first time that we could have those conversations with teams and see if we can replace him, because that replacement option would be right in front of us. When it comes to in-house options, that's the next thing. So if you're replacing him with Calvin Austin or now Robert Woods, that signs a one-year deal yesterday. And don't get me wrong, Robert Woods is not a replacement for George Pickens. He's an upgrade over Van Jefferson for sure, but not by much at this point in his career. Like, you're looking at it going, if they want in-house guys, if they're comfortable taking DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and Robert Woods, I guess, into the season with Ben Skoranek and saying that's our group, does the price tag for George increase? Because you can't replace him. And now you're thinking, okay, maybe we need more. Or on the other side of it, do you think the Steelers could find themselves in a place where, and this comes down to him more than the Steelers, where they're thinking, we got to push this thing out this season. We have to make it work with them because we don't have a trade option.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking is the closer we get to the actual season, the more inclined I am to think that Pickens is just going to ride it out, and they're just going to say, to heck with it for now. Let's get through the season. If he's gone after that, he's gone.
Does that? Do you think Pickens is okay? What's your percentage of Pickens being okay to play on the final year of his deal?
Oh, I mean, I guess because I'm an optimist, I'd say 50%. But I mean, I think it's probably less than that, because I guess he really does have more control in that situation than maybe I want to believe. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious about your thoughts. Less than 50%.
I think it's about 10. I'm giving it about 10. Okay. I think George Pickens is a guy that is on a wide receiver market where on any other team, if he's on the final year of his deal or if he gets traded, he's about to get paid $25 to $30 million a year. That sounds pretty good to me. That sounds pretty great. I think the smarter option for George is to push it out this season, put everything he's got on the field, and then next year leave in free agency where he will get the bag. If you are George Pickens at 24 years old a year from now, in free agency, T. Higgins was going to get paid $35, maybe $40 million a year. George Pickens is looking at that kind of money a year from now, but everybody wants to get paid. And I'm always pro player, go get paid. I think that I think George is going to have a hard time playing on the final year of his deal. I think this kind of like put that in my head of, okay, that thought's got to be right to some degree, because they're not trading him for nothing. They're not getting rid of George Pickens.
Well, I mean, I guess that was my extreme end of this, is like, do they just get forced into a situation where they know they're not going to re-sign him, where they know they have nothing else to do, where they have to just sort of dump him to whatever happens? Or do you think it's likelier that they go through a situation and Pickens is just not on the field playing? I feel like it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think there's a situation where George says, we're good. I'm not playing on the final year of my deal, and it holds in, I guess. I don't see him holding out. I think that's a gone thing in the NFL, but holds in and says, I'm not participating in training camp, and kind of pushes the hand of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think at that point you have to make a trade if you're the Steelers. I'm just interested because now they tried. What do you think the price tag was? What do you think the George Pickens price tag was during the NFL?
I mean, you have to play hardball. I'd be saying somewhere, I think at least the second round pick that you recovered or were lost in the DK Metcalf trade. And I know that probably a lot of people maybe hear that and think that's undervalue or maybe overvalue. I'm not sure. But I just think if you're going in there, the leverage is not on Pittsburgh's side, especially the closer and closer we get to the season. So I think an asking price of a second round pick is probably the most they could have asked for. And I think Dallas would have had the right to come back and been like, how about a third?
Would you? Okay. So as we get close, would you give up George Pickens for a third? Because at this point it's next year. Would you give up George Pickens if they came back and said, we'll give you a third in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting to a point where I think, yes, I would accept that.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
think that is just, it's so dependent because the ball is so much in Pickens' court. And I think, as just from a strictly fan point of view, I just want to see him lined up on the opposite side of DK Metcalf for a season to see if it works. What I'm not sure Pickens is interested in finding out is if that actually works before he signs a new contract.
I agree.
So, yeah. I think
agree.
the Steelers are setting it up where they're going to have to probably move on from him before any sort of extension gets done or anything like that.
I agree. And the one thing weighing against and a lot of people will bring this up, well, can't the Steelers ride it out with George? Obviously, if George Pickens wants to ride it out, but for right now, and I expect it to change soon, like within the next 2 weeks, I expect a different outcome for the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation, aka Mr. Rogers coming to town. And for right now, at least, well, there is no quarterback. And if it ends up with Mason Rudolph as the quarterback, George Pickens doesn't want to be here. He's not putting his final contract year on the line with Mason Rudolph as the quarterback. He's not going to do that. Send me to Dallas because you want to know who's going to throw me the ball? Dak Prescott. That sounds way better. Send me to Arizona, needs a wide receiver. Send me to New England with Drake May. That sounds like a lot of fun. I just feel like he'll be thinking there and saying, okay, there are better options for me to ride this thing out. Again, if he's cool with it, if George Pickens walks in here and says, we're good, he's going to stay. But the weekend and the reports of the trade talks and that they were somewhat close, at least to some degree, enough to be engaged, gets you thinking, they're there. Like they're very open to it, no matter how many times Omar Khan says, no.
And what good would it do to say, yeah, you know what? We actually did reach a point where we've decided internally that we're going to move on from Pickens. So now we're just evaluating trade options. I mean, at that point, just release them. Like
that's what I'm saying.
You got nothing there.
Nothing. Not a thing. There's no chance you are not saving face. I also think it's hilarious that I fell victim to this. I was talking to a family member and after Omar Khan, and I was like, yeah, I don't believe he's just saving face. And the response was, well, you got to believe what he says if he said it. And I was like, yeah, no, you're right. Would you believe Tomlin on a Tuesday? And he was like, no, Tomlin lies all the time. Like, all right, so let's pick a side here. Are we believing or are we not believing? The Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to save some face. Look it. I think Green Bay was on the table. I think Dallas was on the table. I do think the door is still open. Where that goes, we have no idea. It's going to stay quiet till July. Will be no trade until July. I'll put that out there right now because they're going to wait it out. All right, let's talk quarterback. You dropped a very interesting name last time you were on here, and you said that your favorite player in the NFL draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers was, well, the one and only Mr. Ohio State quarterback Will Howard himself. And, Will Howard ends up in Pittsburgh over the weekend. He waits till day 3, the 6th round of the NFL draft, and everybody's talking about the same stuff. Well, how good is he? Can he be the guy? Are the Pittsburgh Steelers done looking for a quarterback? What the situation's going to be like? And the questions, can he beat out Mason Rudolph? Should they stop pursuing Aaron Rodgers? Is he good enough to be the first 6th round pick almost ever to become a franchise quarterback? Not likely, but we're going to dive into it. I'll start by this. I expect Aaron Rodgers to be here by OTAs. That's my expectation. I'm not reporting this. I'm expecting it to be the case where Aaron Rodgers is in town somewhat soon. So Aaron Rodgers will be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025. But I will ask you, because he was your guy going into the draft, what excited you about Will Howard, and what did the Steelers just get in a guy?
I think the size comparisons are just the biggest thing that stick out. It's hard to not get excited about a quarterback who's 6'4", pushing 240, who can sling the ball and also has some mobility. Was he playing on somewhat easy mode in the best team in the country? 100%.
Yes.
There's no doubting how much the team around him impacted his play. But I think at the end of the day, you're trying to mold these players. You're trying to take these raw traits and develop them into something greater. And I think when you look at that, the Steelers thrived when they had a quarterback who met that physical criteria. I think we're watching a player like Josh Allen run the league when he meets that physical criteria. And it's not everything, but it's an exciting part of his game. And the Steelers have virtually no hope at quarterback besides that. So I'm fine to sort of put some more eggs in the basket of someone who might be a long-term project, because I agree with you. He's going to have to sit behind a veteran number 12. But yeah, I think he's exciting because the physicality is just, I think that and the potential is there. So, we'll see. I'm excited.
I am also excited. I like Will Howard. Do I think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL? I think my better guess is he's a long-term backup, which is pretty good. But I do think that John Gruden would tell me, shut the hell up. He's a starting quarterback. This dude's the next Josh Allen. I'd accept it. I'd be cool with it. You look at Will Howard, you look at the quarterback situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Would you be comfortable? And again, like, this is coming from a place of a guy who had a lot of support in this and a lot of faith in this guy, and also somebody who teeters more on the verge of the fan base than I think I do. Are you still expecting and kind of hoping that the Steelers go after a franchise quarterback next year in the NFL draft?
Yes. I think because the fact that there is a question mark at all surrounding Will Howard, and it's not, you look at someone like Cam Ward going to Tennessee and you feel so confident that he's going to be your franchise quarterback. Not the case with Will Howard. That's fine. So the fact that that is even true a little bit makes me think that you still have to look for that franchise quarterback. Now, if he shows up and all of a sudden he is this wunderkind and he comes in and is like the next great Steelers quarterback, then of course it calls everything off. But yeah, I think they're taking a flyer on someone who has a lot of upside potential, but it doesn't change the fact that they still need a true franchise quarterback moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's the best situation. Like, that's the thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Think about what they've done. They went out and they solidified their defense. They said, we need a corner. Okay. In the next year, we need to go get a cornerback. We could go get a corner. There will be corners available somewhere that we can go out and grab. They have safeties. They have linebackers. They have an entire new defensive line. Check. We're good. Pittsburgh Steelers defense is done. On the offensive side of the ball, you got to hope Broderick Jones works out and some of these young guys continue to take steps forward. But the building blocks are there. You've done it. You've put the work in to build an offensive line. You got a running back. You got two of them. They look pretty darn good. And I think Caleb Johnson's going to be an absolute monster. I think there's a chance he's the best running back in this draft. I think that if I had to make a bold prediction, I'm not saying he is. Ashton Genty is. I'm saying outcome at the end of the season, Caleb Johnson might be that dude. Like, he's got a chance to be that dude. You got running backs. You have wide receivers for the most part. You got to figure that out, but I think that's kind of easy to figure out. You just need a quarterback. Like, that's all you got to do. And a year from now, you got to find somebody to compete with Will Howard and say, who's the better of you guys? Go ahead, figure it out. And if that's Will Howard, awesome. Sounds good. Trade the first rounder before he's got any opportunity, because you don't want the rest of the league to think that he stinks and this to turn into Trey Lance. You just, all right, Drew Aller, go ahead. He's on the market. Somebody come get him. And if Will Howard stinks and isn't that guy, or is a long-term backup like he's projected to be, well, cool. You just got a Mason Ben for the next 10 years. That sounds pretty great to me. Like, that sounds like you don't got to worry about the quarterback position for a long time in the NFL. I think it's the best situation the Pittsburgh Steelers should have been in. Do you think they should have went and got Shedeur?
No, I was honestly fine with it not happening, but I really, once it got to pick 15, 16, I was like, oh, they're going to take this. They're going to take him. That's crazy. But no, I don't think they needed to do anything to go outside and get him. It would have been exciting. I think he maybe would have had a little bit higher upside with the Steelers, but it's a shame that he's going to Cleveland, because we know how that's going to end for him. But I hope that he, is the exception to the rule there.
Who's your prediction to be the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback in Week 1?
Oh, I hope it's Kenny Pickett.
You hope it's Kenny Pickett. Who's your prediction? Who do you think ends up? Because there's a lot of people that hope it's Mason Rudolph this year in Pittsburgh.
Sure.
But it's hard to predict that's going to happen.
I hope, and I do also think it's going to be Kenny Pickett, because there is nothing about that quarterback room that is very impressive. Maybe Dylan, obviously between Sanders and Dylan Gabriel, one of them could just impress. Sure. But I think they'll come in there, they'll play well in the preseason, and then they'll still start Kenny Pickett and go 1-7, and then they'll turn to one of them. So we'll see. I'm just going full attack mode on the Browns right now.
Big yikes. You want to hear my prediction for the Cleveland Browns? I've been thinking about this quite a bit. All right. So Joe Flacco is going to be the week 1 starter for the Cleveland Browns. Kenny Pickett won't even be on the roster, actually. He'll most likely be in New Orleans with the Saints because they're going to need a veteran backup quarterback and a guy to compete with Tyler Shuck. And Spencer Rattler ain't it, and they're going to notice that real fast. Kenny Pickett's in New Orleans. Shedeur is the number 3 because they hate him, not because he deserves to be the number 3, because they want nothing to do with the guy. And Dylan Gabriel's number 2 because, that's the guy that they wanted to be the backup. And then the Haslams walked in and said, you better draft Shedeur right now. Stop effing around. This is ridiculous. And they went out and got him. But Kenny's in New Orleans in my dream scenario.
A multi-step plan in place there already. My goodness gracious. I think that sounds probably more logical than what I just threw out there, but man.
Look at I hope it's Kenny. I hope he gets a shot at redemption for the Steelers. I don't think it's going to work out in his favor, but no. I would like to see it. I would like to see him get a shot. We'll see what happens. All right. It's Tuesday. So it's time to play that game. It's Overreaction Tuesday. I'm super pumped to get into this one. Post-draft, I got some good ones for you. Everybody else, if you've got some overreactions, toss them in the chat because we're going to get to at least a couple of them before we move on from my favorite segment of the week. Let's get into it.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business. And sometimes it's very subtle.
Sometimes it's very subtle. We didn't get a Tomlinism from Mike Tomlin this past weekend, but that's all right. I was looking for one. I got a side eye because for anybody who goes back and watches the press conference afterwards, I'm the guy that asked if the quarterback room, if they expected the quarterback position to shake out the way that it did, because I obviously wasn't going to drop the name Shedeur Sanders in the middle of a press conference that I knew I wasn't going to get an answer about. So I tried to sneak it in there a little bit, waiting for the moment. And all I see from the side as I stare at Omar Khan is Mike T going. And I'm like, all right, thanks. Thank you. Appreciate that one. So shout out Mike T, man. Appreciate everybody. Let's dive into them. I got 5 good ones for you here. We're going to start with the guy that we were just talking about. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they have a plan in place. They've had a plan in place. They're thinking Aaron Rodgers is the guy this year. Will Howard made it to the 6th round, but he was a dude many thought was going to go 3rd round, maybe potential 1st round at some point when we were talking about this whole shenanigans, and fell like the rest of the quarterback class. But if Shedeur Sanders is still viewed as the guy that could be the long-term option in Cleveland as a 5th round pick, maybe Will Howard could be the same thing in the 6th round for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers don't have to keep worrying about next year. They don't have to dive in and give up everything and sell the house for a franchise quarterback. They might have one in play. Will Howard's the next guy in Pittsburgh. They don't got to worry about next year and getting a quarterback again.
That is not an overreaction. It is just on the board. I was hoping I'd get you mid-sip. It's close. It's close. Okay. But it is not an over-exaggeration. It is not an overreaction. It's possible. That's it. It could happen.
It could happen. I think there's a possibility. I hope there's I like Will Howard, man. I think this dude cried when he got the phone call. That always adds a little bit of oomph to me. You know what I mean? I'm all about it. Mm-hmm. He's a outside of Philadelphia kid, which is pretty much Scranton. Not really, but you know what I mean? I like to say that I'm from, that's what I'm saying. Same side of the state. Yeah. Good people raised over there. Seems like a good dude. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, I don't know about you, but this entire quarterback saga has been a blast. Content-wise, I've been having a hell of a time. It's never a dull day here on All Steelers Talk. But I'm exhausted, and I don't know if I got another year in me to do the same thing once again. Overreaction. I like that one. All right, let's keep it trucking here. Everybody's talking about the George Pickens trade. You know what I mean? Is he going to Dallas? Are we going to trade him at some point? Are the Pittsburgh Steelers destined to move on from the wide receiver that right now they probably can't even replace? Well, they could replace somebody on their roster. They have depth at other places. And during the NFL draft, it wasn't George Pickens and the lack of wide receivers that we should be looking at when it comes to trades. It's the defensive side of the football. The Pittsburgh Steelers used their 4th round pick to draft outside linebacker Jack Sawyer. No, TJ Watt's not going anywhere, but the door is certainly open for somebody else to. It's not George Pickens that is potentially on the trade block for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It's possibly Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig.
Overreaction. Overreaction.
I
love the Jack Sawyer pick. I really did. I think, just the fact that they got him in the 4th round is great. He's explosive off the edge. Depth of that position's great. You never know what's going to happen. I'm not inclined to give up on Highsmith for one. I'm a big fan of his, but also, Herbig is just really still on that upward climb in terms of his impact on the team. So I would be very, very hesitant to give up on either of those players. So I'm going to go overreaction for that one.
Overreaction. Look at Highsmith costs a lot of money. Herbig is great at coming off the edge as a pass rusher. Jack Sawyer, he's got Steeler DNA. That's what they kept saying. He's a Pittsburgh manhood versus manhood every time he steps on the field, which is exactly what I did on the other side of that phone when he said it out loud. I looked at everyone and said, that's a guy. That's a Pittsburgh Steeler right there. All right, overreaction. I hear you. We'll see what happens. We'll go take it back to the quarterback position for this next one. But we're not going to stick around in Pittsburgh. We're going to head to the team we were just talking about. AFC North, right on the Erie River there, or the Erie Lake, whatever it is, whatever's over there, the body of water outside of the windiest city in the entire United States of America. They got too many quarterbacks. And look, at Dylan Gabriel's not going anywhere. Joe Flacco won comeback player of the year last time he was in Cleveland. And Shedeur Sanders, the owners clearly want him, so you can't get rid of him. That's the problem with your ownership making a draft pick. They got too many quarterbacks. They're not taking 4 guys with starting possibilities into the 2025 season. It's going to take some time, but the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, they're waiting on a dream that may not come true in Aaron Rodgers. And we have no idea what's going to happen and if he's eventually going to sign or not, or how long it's going to take to sign. Well, if Aaron Rodgers says no, says, you know what, these personal things off the field, I'm good. I can't be coming back to the NFL, which all due respect, man, you do what you got to do on your side of life. No doubt about it. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be looking for a quarterback. They're not walking into the season with Mason Rudolph as their guy. They're not giving 6th round pick Will Howard an opportunity. Well, come June, maybe July, maybe you wait a little bit longer, but probably not. Steelers could call their AFC North rival and say, hey, let's talk about an old friend of ours. I'm saying Kenny Pickett is an option to be the Steelers quarterback this season if Aaron Rodgers says, no, I'm good. I'm going to retire.
Oh, man, my skin began to crawl upon hearing the end of that. I am hoping with every fiber of my being that is an overreaction. You have me convinced that he's going to be on another franchise before week 1 with the way the quarterback room is going to shake out in Cleveland. I think the ship has sailed in terms of his relationship with the Steelers. They know what they got with him. Did not end well. And I think that they are very okay with never touching that again. So I really hope that's an overreaction.
Well, look at it. If your options are Mason, I could tell you this. Things did not end well with Kenny and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you want to know who they find new and creative ways to just screw over time and time and time again? Mason Rudolph. And you're telling me that on the long list of wildness that has been, Mason Rudolph was a guy who got told in a meeting that he's given an opportunity to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then in public was like, yeah, I'm not giving any opportunity. They're not even talking about this. Why Mike Tomlin is making me look at that. If that's the case, they're not going to find a fun and creative way to do it again. And that's Kenny Pickett. All right. I hear you. Would be a wild time. What's your record? Let's, before I go on to 4 here, what's your record? And I'm batting 1,000. just so everybody's well aware. I'm batting 1,000 where we're at through 3. What's your record with Kenny Pickett? What's your record with Mason Rudolph this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Ooh. It really is a very small difference. I think if Mason starts all 17, they'd go, would that be 10-7 or something like that. 10.
Yeah.
I think with Kenny Pickett, you're lucky to hit 9 wins.
Ooh. You're a
Mason
over Kenny guy.
I really am a Mason over Kenny guy.
Okay.
And it's a shame because I'm a Pitt grad and I'm just doing my boy no favors. But
none.
No, I'm a Mason guy right now.
All right. I like it. All right. Let's keep it trucking here. We'll go to the NFL draft and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their skew of 7 guys that came in, really 8, because DK Metcalf obviously counts as a second-round pick. And I mean, that dude's a stud. How do you beat DK Metcalf? I don't know. I don't know how you beat a guy who's an all-pro, who's 28 years old, who is an athletic freak, who brings everything you're looking for, who's worth a second-round pick probably and more, a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers said we're handing $150 million to at a wide receiver position, something we've never done before, but we're going to do it now because we think he's going to be the best value for that second-round pick. Well, when this is all said and done, when the dust settles, whether it's the end of this season, whether it's the end of next season, whenever, DK Metcalf is going to be great maybe for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have high hopes and expectations for DK Metcalf, but he's not going to be the best. DK Metcalf against the field will not be the Pittsburgh Steelers' best draft pick of the 2025 offseason.
Ooh, overreaction. That one feels easier for me because I just think Metcalf's impact is going to be truly a difference maker. I'm pumped about Harmon. I think the defensive side of the ball improved greatly just from the draft picks. I will concede that 100%. But especially we're talking about all this George Pickens nonsense and not sure what's going on there. I think having Metcalf there, regardless if it's Mason, Kenny, anyone throwing him the ball, I would rather have DK Metcalf there. And I still think we're going to get 1,000-yard season out of him. And I think that value will equate to a little bit more than something, than Harmon would have to do a lot on the defensive side of the ball to match that value for me.
Derek Harmon, the next Cam Hayward. Okay. You got Caleb Johnson, the next Le'Veon Bell. Options are there. Will Howard, next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, look at, all right. I hear you. We'll see what happens. That's a lot of names to beat the field and DK Metcalf. A lot of confidence in a guy. I mean, but you got to have confidence. You paid him $150 million a year. All right. This is my last one for you. I'm still batting 1,000 on this one. I might get you. I might get you on this one. The Pittsburgh Steelers wanted Shedeur Sanders. There was no questions to it. I mean, I broke the news that they brought him in for a visit. That sparked so much conversation. Jerry Dulac, and the words on this show, the advice I always give is if Dulac talks, you listen. And that's what he did here. He said that he's never in his 30 years covering the team had a glowing endorsement the way that Mike Tomlin gave Shedeur Sanders a glowing endorsement during the pre-draft visit. There was so much talk of Shedeur. This dude could have been the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. He could have been the 2nd-round pick, the 3rd-round pick, the 4th, the 5th. It would have made so much sense if the Pittsburgh Steelers just went out and got Shedeur Sanders and said, dude, who cares when we got him? We got our guy at quarterback. But then there was the talk of the town that the Pittsburgh Steelers, well, they didn't want Shedeur. Mike Tomlin wanted Shedeur Sanders and that he was pounding the table to get Shedeur Sanders. Well, they didn't get him, and they didn't get him because of this. Mike Tomlin didn't draft Shedeur Sanders because he is finally aware that one more bad quarterback move, some big bad quarterback move, finally puts him on the hot seat. Mike Tomlin is starting to get to a point where he's recognizing his job security is not as secure as it once was with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, that's on the money for sure.
Let's go.
Let's go. I think Tomlin is well aware of his track record with quarterbacks in the post-Ben Roethlisberger era.
Yes.
Where the exact blame lies, we could debate that, all day and night. Fine.
Yes.
But there's only so much of it that the organization can actually tolerate, regardless of the incredibly long leash he's earned. And I'm a huge fan of Tomlin. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. It would be very difficult to replace him with a better one. But being all gung-ho on a certain quarterback has not proven to be the absolute best way forward in terms of a quarterback in Pittsburgh. So I think Tomlin might have had some second guesses. He might have gone into those meetings being like, this is the player I want to draft. I think he's the guy. But I think that little bit of trepidation, that little bit of, well, if this happens again, maybe I'm not coming back. I think that's a thought that has entered Coach Tomlin's mind over the last couple of weeks.
I agree 100%. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers looked at it and they said, we don't want him. And you are down to your last bad court. Like Kenny Pickett, awful move, terrible way to start. Russell Wilson would have been fine if it didn't come with benching Justin Fields, who looked good. And then you decided Justin should have been the guy. That's strike two. They only get 3 of them before. And I'm not saying he gets fired at the end of a bad Shedeur Sanders run, but I think it's the beginning of Mike Tomlin doesn't get another contract extension unless he wins some playoff games. And the Pittsburgh Steelers look like a much better football team than they have the past couple of years. And I don't think I think when you put that in front of him, he said, yep, you know what? Maybe you're right, dude. Maybe Deion's son ain't the guy who's going to take us out of whatever misery we're in here. I agree. Look at that. 1 for 5. That's what we're in for. We got a couple from the chat here that we got to get into real quick. Cody Silva, some kind of reaction. The Browns drafted Dylan Gabriel to stay away from Sanders, and ownership made them do it anyway. Overreaction or not?
No, I think that's probably exactly what happened. Just goes to show you sometimes, you got to just do what the boss says.
Yeah, and it comes back to get you fired. That's exactly what's going on here. Because you think about it, Jimmy Haslam said, go get Deshaun Watson, go give up everything in your power to go get Deshaun Watson. Big yikes. Put Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry in a place that do not look very good. And then he said, you want to know who's going to save us? Shedeur Sanders. That's going to be the one. And I think you could tell by their facial expressions, yeah, dude, we just lost our jobs. That sucks. I got to sell my house in Cleveland. I don't know how the market is in Cleveland, but who's trying to go there? Like, nobody's trying to be like, you want to know what I can't wait to do? Buy a house in Cleveland. That sounds... That sounds awesome. No, Cody, it's a good one. I agree with it 100%. They wanted nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders, but they got him anyways. Pittsburgh Hornets, overreaction. One of the quarterbacks in the room right now will finish the season. In other words, Aaron Rodgers will not be the starting quarterback by the end of the 2025 campaign. Overreaction or not?
No, I don't think that's an overreaction. I don't know if it's the most likely, but no, I think that's a totally fine thing to ponder. I don't know if he's coming. Like, I think he is still, as we keep saying, but yeah, I think it's just as possible that he's nowhere to be found.
I agree. And even if not, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And just like we said, Mike T's getting to that place where he can't be messing this thing up much longer. If Aaron Rodgers ain't good, they're going to move to somebody else. I would say it's not an overreaction. Do I think it's likely? No. Do I think it's an overreaction? Also, no. Carl Spackler, overreaction. Jack Sawyer is the best defensive pick the Steelers have made since TJ Watt. I'll start this one off. Overreaction, okay? Overreaction. Since TJ Watt. That includes Joey Porter Jr. That includes who else has come? Keanu Benton's in that group. Obviously, the bad ones like DeMarvin Leal, Isaiah Loudermilk. But you're putting Peyton Wilson in that group. You're putting Alex Highsmith in that group. Like Derek Harmon in this class alone. Overreaction. I hope, but
yeah,
say no.
That makes me sad if that's true. I think it's an overreaction. That's not me saying I don't think Sawyer's going to develop into a good edge rusher in the NFL. I think that's totally within the realm of possibilities. I love Joey Porter Jr. That was the first name I thought of too. The Artie Burns disrespect. No, I'm kidding. I think that's an overreaction. Sorry, Carl.
Overreaction. It's a good one, but an overreaction. All right, we'll finish off with this one. Unlimited moonballs. Overreaction. The Steelers will finish in the top 10 in both offense and defense this year. Overreaction or not?
Yeah, overreaction. I have a hard time seeing this offense being a top 10 offense, even if everything goes their way. I think top 15 would be like a crown jewel achievement for this offense based off of where they've been the last few years.
I look at it and say I agree, and it depends on where it is. Like, maybe they have a top 10 rushing defense or offense. I think they could have a top 10 defense with ease. I think the passing game is a giant question mark, and we will see what happens. But I do not feel good about this situation. My phone's going off too. National thunderstorm warning. I hope the dude that's working on my deck right now is doing okay. Stephen Cornfield will finish off with this one, actually. Overreaction with this new draft class added and minus quarterback situation. This team is now built to win a Super Bowl this year. Overreaction or not?
Yeah, I need more convincing to really see this team as a Super Bowl contender this year. I think they're building towards contending again. I think there's a lot of teams better than them. What do you think, Noah?
I think Aaron Rodgers gives you the best shot to try to win a Super Bowl. And I only say that because I think the rest of this roster is built to give you a shot. I don't think it pulls it off. I don't think you're developed enough on the offensive line. I think there's still a little bit of holes here and there, but I do think for the most part, the Pittsburgh Steelers are at a place where they've done a lot of good, and you never know what happens. Now, do I think that they beat the Eagles or the Chiefs or the Bills? Probably not, but I do look at it and say possibly. And, if it happens, we will I'll look at it right now and say you can't take the quarterbacks. If no quarterbacks existed, the Chiefs are not my Super Bowl favorite every single year. So if you put that quarterback situation in there, you get Aaron Rodgers. I think it's built to give you a shot. And I didn't think last year it was built to give him a shot. I didn't think the year before it was built to give him a shot. This is the first year I think that built to give you a shot. Is it going to happen? Probably not, but built to give you a shot. All right. We're going to finish off the show the same way we do every day. We're going to start answering your questions for the next 19-ish minutes. With that said, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
Shout out Stephen Corfield's comment that was just chilling there the whole time because I totally forgot to take it down. All right. Shout out to our super chatters. Shout out to our members. If you want to become a member, you could do so by hitting the link in the description below. Appreciate all you guys as always. We're going to start diving into them as we got about 15-ish minutes left to go. Me and good old Jake Punturi here. Jake, toss him your Twitter real quick before we get him clicking. Everybody go follow him while we're midstream here.
It's at Jake_Atsby, ATSBY.
What a
for
great name.
all of my literature friends out there.
Fantastic. All right, let's start with this one. Good old Maddie on vacation this week and celebrating my birthday today. Happy birthday to Matt. Okay. Maddie's Jake, you're not around enough, but Maddie's awesome. She's in here every day. She's the dude. So shout out to Maddie. Happy birthday. That's all. I hope you're enjoying it. Who cares that you've been MIA? I hope you're enjoying it. But what are the chances Will Howard works out? He's everything that the Steelers are looking for, and his leadership is crazy. And then we'll add this one. Do you think Will Howard can beat out Mason Rudolph? We'll start with that. You think there's any chance Will Howard, if it was a one-on-one competition, could actually beat out Mason Rudolph for the starting job this year?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a chance. And I think I would be a fool to go back on my Will Howard belief this soon. But yeah, I think there's a chance. And I think there's probably like a 25% chance that he could turn out to be something more than just a body on an NFL roster. But I think that's generous.
I agree. I think right now my outlook on Will Howard is a long-term backup quarterback with some upside, and I'm excited about that upside, but I don't see him as the end-all be-all for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't see him coming in here and saving anything, but I do think he's got a chance. Now, I think he's got a lot of upside. I think he's got all the tangibles you're looking for. It's just about, can he put it on the field and make it work? He's been playing on easy mode. His best games did not come until that playoff run, and during that playoff run, if you go to that Penn State game, wasn't the best. So there are question marks. I do think he's got upside. It's about seeing that upside, but I'm not going to overlook a 6th-round pick That's something I don't think I could do if he wasn't a quarterback. I think we'd be much calmer on the situation. So beating out Mason, though, I think long-term, definitely. Right now, question. Marlon Lewis, would the Steelers be fine entering the season with Mason, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson, or do they absolutely have to get Rodgers? Your thoughts?
I think they could get by. So yes, Marlon, I think they'd be fine entering the season with this quarterback room. But man, that gives me no optimism for anything beyond just salvaging another winning season. So I think they could be fine, but I also think they absolutely still need to improve at the position if they're built to have a shot, to use your words, Noah.
I agree. I look at it and say that the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is coming from like everything I've heard, the Steelers want nothing to do with a quarterback room that includes Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, Skylar Thompson, and that's the day. Like, that's it. They want nothing to do with that. They want to add somebody. They want that somebody to be Aaron. They feel good about Aaron. They think it's going to come. They absolutely think it needs to be another veteran. They don't need a guy that's going to definitely start over Mason Rudolph, but they need competition. They don't view Will Howard as that competition. Not yet. So until that happens, yeah, they would add somebody else. I don't think they'd be comfortable without adding somebody else. Mario, hey, Noah, I love the show. Appreciate you. Do you think the Steelers will add a safety like Justin Simmons? I don't think they need a safety after right now. Justin Simmons would be the only name that still pops to me, I think. But I don't think the Steelers would be that interested in adding a safety at this point with Juan Thornhill and then going out and undrafted rookie Sebastian Castro, who's a stud out of Iowa. Big fan of his. You think differently? You think that there's any chance the Steelers will go out and add a big name safety?
I'd be shocked if it's someone with, NFL experience like a Justin Simmons. I think they really like bringing in players that are, undrafted free agents, a la Beanie Bishop last year. I could see Sebastian Castro getting a very similar sort of path to having a roster spot and some getting some snaps once the regular season starts. But no, I don't think they need to add a safety. Depth is always great, but I think they're pretty well stacked in the secondary at this point.
I agree. We'll move to Roger Steeler. Caleb Johnson said multiple times he wants to be a 3-down back. If he does he have a chance to break Barry Foster's team rushing record? I don't even know what that record is. Steelers rushing record. Let's look it up here. As we're sitting here and going through this one, I will say that Caleb's a stud. He's my favorite pick in this entire NFL draft. I apologize. I'm on a different. There we go. He's my favorite pick in this entire draft. That dude is an absolute monster. He fits what the Steelers want to do schematically so damn well. I can't emphasize that if you are bored in the middle of the night, like I was Saturday night, I was sitting there, my wife's passed out, I'm eating Wingstop for the first meal of my day at 10:30 at night, and I'm just sitting there watching Caleb Johnson pitch highlights because the guy knows how to cut back. He knows how to make it work. He's a stud. I love Caleb Johnson. I'm going to look up the record.
1690, by the way.
1690. What was the record? How many yards? We know?
He rushed for
16,000.
1,690 yards in 1992.
Oh, at some point during his career, I won't say no, but man, dude, I think this running back class has that type of upside, though. I really do. Your thoughts on Caleb Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for him. I think despite his intention of being a 3-down back, he's not going to get that right away. I think Jaylen Warren still commands a ton of the snaps and the reps in the team offense. So I'd be shocked to see Caleb Johnson completely usurp Jaylen Warren in that regard. But I think he can be a really, really good starting running back for the Steelers moving forward. I just don't think it'll be this year.
No. I think this year he'll be the 2 to Jaylen, but I think they could work as a 1-2 punch long term. And I think that it's a fantastic way to go about it if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Hornets, if you had to give your personal Madden rating to Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, and Will Howard, what would it be? Luckily, I'm a Madden addict, so I'm well aware of these. Aaron Rodgers, to me right now, would be a sound 78. Sound 78. And I don't think I'm going any higher than that. Mason Rudolph would be a firm 69. Not feeling good about it, but not feeling high on that one. Will Howard would come rocking in here at a 65 with some upside. He'd probably be the only one that could develop higher, but it's not looking good. Not saying anything different. I think when Kenny at his peak was an 80. So, it's not that much better.
No, not an impressive Madden QB room. Howard might have some of those traits that, some of those unlockable traits when you take someone in the draft that you have to kind of find out what kind of player they are. But not impressive. I give it a C- overall, but I think the 78, 79 is like the most accurate for Rodgers for sure.
All right. So that brings us to Pittsburgh Hornets once again. What would you say Omar's overall draft grade would be so far throughout we'll give it his full tenure and what you're thinking this year. My draft grade this year was an A-. The only miss was Jack Sawyer. I thought it was a weird pick, but I understood it. Overall, I think outside of Broderick, he's on fire, to be honest with you. And I would say B+ because Broderick's a first round pick, but besides that, he's pretty damn good. So I would stick there. What are your grades for Omar?
Yeah, I think this most recent draft, I would go probably like just a B flat. Nothing crazy. I think it was good. I think it addressed a lot of needs. Overall, I think I would go probably a little bit more towards an A- B+ situation. I think he is an incredible talent evaluator, and he's brought in a ton of good draft picks. There's just been a couple of misses, but yeah, overall, I think he's an incredible drafter.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's keep it trucking here. Unlimited moonballs. Noah, if Shedeur would have potentially cost Tomlin his job if he was terrible, how would Tomlin look if Shedeur turns out to be a guy? I can answer this one because I've been told this multiple times. Like, it doesn't matter if Shedeur turns out to be incredible, like turns out to be the next greatest quarterback of all time. He's going to make the entire league look bad, not teams that passed on him. And to be honest, he'll make the Cleveland Browns look terrible for passing on him 6 times before they actually drafted him. So it wouldn't be eyes on Pittsburgh. And again, like it's not public perception versus Tomlin. It's Rooney and Omar and those guys versus Tomlin in the Shedeur battle. It wasn't everybody in the fan base saying, don't draft Shedeur. It was Tomlin saying, I want Shedeur, and the rest of the Steelers saying, we don't want Shedeur Sanders. And I think because of that, it's not on Tomlin if he turns out to be great. It's on everybody else, which, Rooney's not going to get upset with himself. So I feel like it works out well. It's not a direct hit on Mike Tomlin's kind of tenure here.
Yeah. My counter to that too would be I don't know the 9 teams that passed on Patrick Mahomes, but I know he was passed on, right? So like I don't think the Steelers would be like the one isolated team that takes the heat for skipping Sanders if he does turn out to be a really good NFL quarterback.
I agree. Carl Spackler here. I'd be curious to know from a media standpoint, things you are most looking forward to during the season and things you will miss most from the offseason. As somebody Jake, you cover the games on Sundays next to me. Like, Sundays are nice. Sundays are not. That's the thing I think I miss the most during the season. Sundays are a good time. Everybody loves a good Sunday. Couple of things that I missed during the offseason. Being able to golf is a massive one. Not gaining my football 20 pounds is a massive one. Those are 2 big ones because they feed you well. And Sundays are good. Like, I enjoy watching golf. I enjoy watching the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. Like, it's a good time. The football season, I kind of focus solely on the Steelers and the NFL, so it's tough. Things I'm most looking forward to are the same things, though. Sundays, like football Sundays, the Pittsburgh Steelers games, getting to be there, getting to eat shitty food on the road in every city. You know what I mean? Like, it's the good and the bad. There is nothing. I love it all. I love it all. I love it all.
I'm pumped for the season.
Yes,
truly.
Yes,
especially
truly.
Being on here chatting with you more. I'm like, let's get back to those Sundays. I love a lazy Sunday. I really do, but I like covering the games.
There's nothing better than a good crisp in the air knowing you got to cover a football game. All right, Thomas, wish we traded next year's second round and got Will Johnson. Caleb Johnson is going to be a stud for us. Did you think we were going to trade GP during the draft? I do think they would have traded GP. I think they would have traded him for a second-round pick. I think I knew those conversations were most likely going to happen. I didn't know how deep they'd get. I still don't know how deep they got. Like, I don't know if it was on the verge, if, the Steelers had a number and the Cowboys wouldn't go to that number. I have no idea what was going on there. What I do know is that when you look at it, when you look at the grand view or the landscape of things, it was a situation that had to happen. You couldn't not have those conversations. It didn't make any sense to not have those conversations. I'm curious to know how deep they got. Did you expect GP to be traded during the draft, heading into the draft?
Yeah, I think especially on Friday of the draft, I was like, this feels like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen today. So, I mean, yeah, I thought he was going to get moved. So I was a little bit surprised that he didn't, but it sounds like there was just nothing deep enough. No conversations went far enough to consummate the deal.
No. All right. William here, overreaction. If Rodgers comes to Pittsburgh, it will be the end of Mike Tomlin. Your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers coming to Pittsburgh and not working out?
With that caveat, not an overreaction. If Rodgers comes in and they're like a terrible team, like 4-win team, 5-win team,
yeah,
I think that might drain all trust the Steelers ownership has in Tomlin's evaluating skills at quarterback, which is like the biggest problem the franchise is still trying to figure out. So if you can't trust your head coach to make that decision, sure, I think you might be time to move on. I don't think it's likely that Aaron Rodgers, if he does come to Pittsburgh, only wins 4 or 5 games. But worst case scenario happens, I could see Tomlin being out of here if it all just completely blows up.
I agree. All right, Cody Silva here. He wants your opinion. Would you pick Joshua Farmer over Jack Sawyer in the 4th round?
No, I have a hard time taking like a firm stance on like one draft pick over another in the 4th round. Like I don't know enough to be like, yeah, Joshua Farmer, he just had that one trait that is the difference. Like I like Jack Sawyer. I watched him more on a national championship team. So yeah, no hate on Farmer either. I don't think it would have been it's a big difference right now.
I agree. All right. And we'll finish it off with this one. Does Atlanta have your number to the call-in show? Because Jeff, Ulbrich, whatever his kid's name is at Ole Miss, making the prank calls to Shedeur Sanders. I'll say this. This is a great way to end the show. That kid, awful. Shedeur should get, 30 seconds in the ring with him, and that's how it should go down. But to be honest with you, like, it's weird for guys like Stephen A to be saying he should get his ass kicked and that kind of stuff. Like, all right, we're grown adults. This is a child. Let's calm it down a little bit. Shedeur and him, both about the same age. 30 seconds you get 1 minute, brother. You 1 minute, see what happens. See if you can hold up, because I bet you Shedeur is pretty pissed off about that. And they should toss everybody who made the prank call. Tyler Warren gets a shot in there. You know what I mean? Everybody gets a minute. We'll see what happens. That's how we should handle it. Awful times. But look at it. It came back to bite them in the ass. Why? Because they made the dumbest pick of the draft, trading back into the 1st round for James Pierce Jr. So, you know what I mean? Karma always finds its way. Shout out to Pittsburgh Hornets. All right. With that said, we are, never mind. We're not done. Unlimited Moonballs. We were the only team left with a QB need. Our passing on Shedeur holds more weight than other teams who have a QB. All eyes were on us on draft day. Do you think that? Okay. My thoughts on this. My thoughts on the Shedeur and everything, and you needed a quarterback and so on and so forth. If Shedeur turns out to be the greatest thing on turf, awesome. But there's got to be a reason that the entire NFL passed on him. And I don't know what that reason is, whether it was the bad meetings, whether it was the tape, whether it was the whole 9, doesn't matter. But it's not just the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, they were the team that everybody kept linking to Shedeur as the guy, go get Shedeur Sanders. But there were 32 teams that said we're good for 5 rounds to say we are okay. We don't want Shedeur Sanders. I think it goes much bigger than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, when it's all said and done and the 30 for 30 comes out, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be mentioned as the team that passes on him. But again, the spotlight is not bright enough on the Steelers passing on him over the Browns passing on him 5 times before taking him and taking another quarterback ahead of him to say that that's the situation. I just don't think that the spotlight is big enough to say this is going to cost somebody their job if he turns out. Plus, and all this is a good way to end the show. What's your confidence level in him actually working out in Cleveland? Do you have any confidence that Cleveland, where quarterbacks go to die, he's going to turn into a superstar? I can't believe he's in Cleveland quarterback with, I mean, go ahead, name their number 1 wide receiver. I believe it's still Jerry Jeudy, and things are not, their entire team's looking old. Do you have any confidence in that?
Nope. Nope. I feel bad for Shedeur, genuinely.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to be big. I don't think, if it does work out, it makes the entire league look bad, but I don't think there's enough of a spotlight in the future on the Steelers in that situation. All right. With that said, now we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Jake, thank you so much for joining me once again. I'll have you in all of this every time you're on the show. Toss your socials, your everything out there. Where can people find you?
Heck yeah. I already shared my Twitter, but it's at Jake_Atsby if you want to give me a follow. I am part of the team covering the NHL playoffs for Breakaway on SI. You can find us at www.si.com/onsi/breakaway.
Yep,
I believe is the correct URL.
I believe so.
And if you're interested in following along with our Stanley Cup playoff coverage, that's where it'll be. But thanks for having me on again, Noah. I appreciate it, buddy.
Yes, sir. And with that said, you can find both of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. And you can check out this podcast anywhere you get your podcast. Go hit those audio downloads and please hook us up with a 5-star review. Been climbing slowly, but feeling good about it. With that said, I'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.